Coming to you live from the beautiful Gulf Coast of Florida, home of the Naval Air Station Pensacola and the Blue Angel, Eglin Air Force Base and Hurlburt Field. This is another edition of Forward March with your hosts, Al Gilley and David G. Landfair.
Hello and welcome to the third season of Forward March. I'm David G. Landfair.
And I'm Al Gilley. Our sponsors for today's show are Trident Home Loans, where they offer the best home loans for our active duty military and veterans. And they do this in over 16 states. And Fresh Coat Pensacola, where you can expect the best, because they are in fact the best painting contractors in the Pensacola area, specializing in interior and exterior residential and commercial painting. And TEL Staffing and HR, offering specialized, personalized, professional employer services all over the Gulf Coast. And they've been doing this for over 15 years. And Gulf Coast Tents, where you can get everything you need for weddings, corporate events, and parades.
We have a really great show. Military wives, heroes on the home front.
Yes, we're going to be talking about another part of our military family. I'm talking about 1.4 million military wives who have a spouse or a husband who's serving in our military somewhere, whether it's in the States or overseas. And we're going to be talking and looking at their skills, their sacrifices, the advantages that they've had, but we're also going to be looking at how they have that group that have shown love for them and appreciation for them. I'm talking about their family. I'm talking about their military units. I'm talking about the government. And most of all, I'm talking about you, the civilian population. So this show is about that 1.4 million of our family.
I can say from my experience, I'm lucky I have a terrific wife, and I was a Navy brat, and I have a terrific mom. And I'm not sure if I completely understand military wives, but I certainly have seen a lot of what they've gone through. And I think we can all agree that military wives have a little different equation than their civilian counterparts.
I agree.
They're exposed to constant travel, the military members being deployed overseas and worrying about them. Lots of change. They have an unusual understanding of what service means to their country. We saw in the Military Child Show last season that, and this is kind of the flip side of the coin, the spouses, like the military child, they tend to be a little more disciplined, self-confident, adaptable because of this experience they've had in the military. They have a sense of pride in what their spouses do. They're very patriotic, and this certainly carries over into all aspects of their lives.
Well, we have a very first on this show today. We're going to have and present to you, the audience, 3 generations of military wives who have had husbands at different ranks in the military. And we're going to talk to them and let you get a chance to hear about their experiences as military wives, what were some of their challenges, and ask them to give advice to future military wives or new military wives. And I just think it's going to be a great show.
It's going to be a great show. I'm looking forward to it. But first, let's take a break and hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back.
The few, the proud, the Marines.
Okay, great show. Military wives, heroes on the home front. Now, first, let's do what we always do, a little history of our topic. And first, I'd like to go over some stats. The Department of Defense says that there's 1.4 million active duty and reserve military spouses in the military today, and 15 million veteran military spouses. 95% of those spouses are women, 5% men. Now, some thoughts. The role of the military spouse has evolved over the years, and then we'll see that as we go over the history. They all have something in common, and that is experiencing constant change, and they've created a legacy of women of courage and strength. No matter how times have changed over the years, there's always a sense of pride in their family, in their country, and a strong connection with their peers because they've all lived that unique military spouse experience. Let's go back and we'll look at the history of the American military wife and spouse and start with the Revolutionary War. Believe it or not, military wives played a huge part in the Revolutionary War. And I'm not talking just about staying home and cooking and sewing and caring for the children, but they also joined in. Nursing, preparing documents, writing as messengers, cooking for troops. Now, obviously, it wasn't accepted for women to serve. Many of them disguised themselves as men. It was a secret, but today we bring that forward, and with pride and with great respect, we honor all those women.
Now, in World War II, 1939 to 1945, we know, and history tells us, that our women at home here in America, their workload, the jobs that they did, more than doubled as their men went off to war. And the thing about it is, as I looked at the research, this period of time, more things were placed upon our women, more jobs, more things for them to do to make this economy flow than ever in the history of this nation. And you know what? They did it, and they took any job they could take. They took nursing jobs, they built airplanes, they did it all. And not only did they have to make our economy flow, but they also had to go home and be a mother. They also had to be a businesswoman. They also had to do all the things that you would expect a woman to do, even if there had not been a war. And many times, families had to live together. That's just the way the conditions were. And that made it very difficult to ration food. But our women didn't cry and worry about. What they did was they survived. They went out and they had rubber drives, they had victory gardens, they did anything they could do to help. They had scrap drives, and all those things played a mighty price in making this thing successful. And you know what? During this time, our women couldn't even join the military. They weren't allowed to be in the Army, but that didn't stop them. They still did their part. And I'm one. I can raise my hand and say, I know that even though our men, we say they won the war for us, they would not have been able to win World War II had not our women been here on the home front doing the things that they did to make our economy flow successful and have something for our men to come back to.
You know, when you were talking, you reminded me of that poster of Rosie the Riveter.
I remember that, and we talked about it in one of our earlier shows.
We did.
Yes.
About 70% of the women who served in the military during World War II held traditional female jobs. Typists, clerks, mail sorters. They weren't permitted to be in armed conflict, but those in the medical career field came close. Now moving on to Vietnam War, from 55 to 75, this was that protracted conflict. Many women still were at home and maintaining the household. Others served the war effort, and many volunteered in lots of different areas. There were 11,000 stationed in Vietnam. 90% served as nurses. Others served as physicians, air traffic controllers, and intelligence officers, for example. Now, Vietnam became an unpopular conflict, and there were not very many support groups for spouses of soldiers. So the spouses took matters in their own hands, and they formed groups with other spouses and created organizations to help spouses of the Vietnam War. We remember and honor all of the spouses for their effort and sacrifices made for our country during this time as their roles became even more expanded.
Finally, with the global war on terrorism, that was from 2001 to present, the face of war changed. And it changed the role of and the challenges for our military wives forever. No doubt, the terror war has caused some challenges at home. And those challenges are our military have to be able to deploy now quicker than ever, and with as little notice as have ever been given. Even with all the challenges that this war on terrorism has for our wives understand that in this new age, technical-wise, they have an advantage, okay? Because now when we're overseas or our military men are deployed and women are deployed, the spouses can now just reach out with a click of a button. And you can send Instagrams, and you can do FaceTime with your partner, and that's important. And so they have these advantages.
This is going to be a great show. Military wives, heroes on the home front. We've got some great guests. Some of them I know really well. This will be interesting. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
They didn't join this team to win championships or become famous. They joined because there is important work to be done, and only some able to do it. They are brighter, better educated, led, and equipped than any team in history. They are doctors, lawyers, engineers, technologists, and combat troops, all prepared for whatever comes their way. You'll find them where the lights don't flash, and the only contract they sign is with themselves and their country. One day, they may be asked what they did to make a difference in this world. And they can respond, "I became a soldier."
Friends, we're back. I'm Al Gilley.
And I'm David G. Landfair.
We're talking about today military wives, heroes of the home front. I mean, it looks like it's going to be a great show, David.
It is. We're going to have wives from 3 different generations to talk to.
Well, our first 2 guests are Pat Landfair. The name sounds familiar. I'm sure you know why. We have Pat Landfair, who is the wife of retired Navy Captain Robert Wayne, Bob, they call him at home, except the ones that call him Dad and the ones that call him hubby, Landfair. And we have with us also Marie Landfair, the wife of a United States Air Force retired lieutenant colonel that I know, the one that you see sitting to my left all the time. So, David, you mind if I bring your mother and your...
I do mind.
Wait, what do you mean you mind? Why?
They might say something that I don't want the whole audience to know.
Well, I'm definitely going to bring them on. Let's meet David's mother and David's wife. Hi, welcome.
Hi.
Mrs. Landfair.
Well, thank you very
Marie,
much.
Welcome.
Good to
now,
see you
let me
again.
tell you before we even get started, before any questions are asked, I'm military intelligence, okay? All my career. And so I'm going to get a good story out of one of you about this fella here. I don't know which one of you it's going to be, but I'm not going to stop. I'm going to interrogate you until one of you give up one good story. So you all decide in your mind who's going to give it up, okay? So Dave, why don't you ask one of...
Question number 1?
That's
okay,
right.
question number 1 to Mom. Could you tell the audience a story, because you have a lot of war stories,
Yeah, I do.
about living overseas, particularly going to one that didn't even have any support mechanisms set up for you?
Okay. I know what you're talking about. You're talking about Spain. And we went there in 1957. And we were the first 50 to be on the base. And the base was not finished. It had no chapel. It had no commissary. It had no hospital. It had no school. We had a few houses built. And we moved in. I spoke no Spanish. And they didn't speak any English. This was back in 1957. They do, a lot of them speak English now, but they didn't then. And it was a wonderful tour. The family, I think, really benefited from it. We made some wonderful friends. We still go back to Spain to visit those friends. We've maintained those friendships throughout the years. They were very kind to me. I'd go to the market. I couldn't speak Spanish. I didn't know how much money I had. I just hold it out, hope for the best. And they were so kind. If I'd go in and finally find a word that I was looking for, if they didn't have it, they'd send somebody with me to go find it at another store. And when I'd get there and I'd say, "Oh, I don't have enough money. No dinero." They'd say, "Fine." I didn't sign anything. I don't know where you find people like that. It was wonderful.
When did you realize that my brother, Jim, when Jim's first language was actually Spanish?
Actually, it was your oldest brother, Stan. We went to a cathedral and we wanted to go tour it. And I think I was the speaker, because I'd been around Spanish people the most, more than Bob. So I said in my broken Spanish, "Where is the guard? Can we get in?" And then, of course, once you speak, they just go on and on. You know, they think you understand, and I didn't. And so Bob, who usually hears better than I do, his grammar was better, said, "Did you get any of that?" And I said, "Not a word." And Stan said, he said the guard was over at the restaurant having his breakfast and he'd be back in about 15 minutes. But if we went and on and on and on, and we just stared at him. We had no idea that he could speak Spanish, that he understood, but he didn't speak it unless he was spoken to in Spanish. So, and Jim actually was a year old when we went. So, and when we did have a maid, we had a live-in maid. I think it was $15 a month I may have, maybe more than it was, but she had one afternoon off and she brought us presents when she came back. And she absolutely loved our children, and we loved her. And I kept up with her after we left.
Marie.
Yes.
Now, you came along, you were serving in the military, I say serving as a military wife during the Gulf War time period.
Yes.
So how long have you been a military wife? And tell us a little bit about your military experience.
Well, I was actually born a military dependent in the Air Force. My father was a colonel in the Air Force, and I met Dave at my father's assignment at the Pentagon. And so it's been, Dave and I have been married for 27 years, so I guess the last 7 years. So 22 years as a wife, and before that as a dependent. So it was not a shock, the lifestyle that we had. Though in my father's career, we stayed a little longer in the places that we lived, as opposed to my husband's career. We moved every 2 years, sometimes 18 months, sometimes 10 months. So we never stayed in any place longer than 2 years until he retired. So that was a little bit difficult. But otherwise, you know, being a dependent brat, you know what to expect, kind of, and you kind of get used to that lifestyle.
So how many children do you and David have?
We have 2 girls. One was born in Nebraska. The other was born in Colorado Springs. When Samantha was 3, we moved to Korea, and at that point we had problems with the kindergarten on base. Samantha was extremely smart, and she already knew all of the things in the preschool, and they wouldn't let her go into the kindergarten. So I went and searched. That's exactly right. So I went and I searched and found a Korean Christian school, and they had a 4-year-old kindergarten program. So I put her in there, drove down into town every day and would drop her off and pick her up, and she spoke little Koreans, you know, ate all the ramen noodles with them, and she was the little blonde girl and she had all her little Korean friends. She loved it.
Well, pros and cons. There's a pro, I'm sure, of being a military spouse, and a con. Pros and cons.
Well, I think that you're faced with a lot of challenges that you might not be faced in a civilian life. The moving, the meeting new people, the new languages, all the things you've already mentioned. But I think the pros outweigh that. I think the chance to learn new things, to learn about people in another country, the things your children learn, and not just the external things about the country, but I think they learn a lot about going to a new place. They may be the captain of a team one place, the next place they may be invisible. And they learn to work their way back. They're not entitled, you earn your way. And I think it teaches humility. And I think that's good. And they've all gone through it. Every one of them moved in their sophomore year of high school, and that's hard.
It is.
But I'm really proud of the way that they did it, and they never complained. We were a tight little group, and we were going to make it. The boys stayed close and supported each other. I think we gained a lot more than we ever lost.
Very, very good. And Marie, can you think of any other pros and cons that your mother didn't mention? She mentioned quite a few, and they were good ones.
She did, and they're all absolutely true. You know, the pros definitely, at least in our experience, outweigh the cons. You know, the experiences that I've been able to have been unbelievable. I would never been able to have had some of them otherwise.
Okay, so David, let's do our forward march.
Forward march on 3. You've seen the show many times.
We
You know
have.
how it works.
We do.
Okay, look at the camera. 1, 2, 3.
Forward march!
Stay tuned. We'll be right back after these messages.
And we're back. I'm Al Gilley.
And I'm David G. Landfair. We're talking about one of the most important parts of the military team, the military spouse. Title of today's episode, Military Wives, Heroes on the Home Front.
And today, we're going to be meeting a new generation of military wife. Our next guest is married to Master Sergeant, currently serving in the United States Air Force, Master Sergeant James Dukes. And at this time, he's deployed out in Illinois doing some recruiting for the Air Force. Master Sergeant Dukes also, I'd like to remind you, served during Enduring Freedom. And he did a wonderful job for our country during that conflict. So why don't we meet Charlene? Charlene, welcome to the show. Welcome to Forward March.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome. I understand that your father was in the military, so you're also a military brat.
That is correct.
Could you tell us a little bit about your background and your association with the United States military?
Sure. I'm actually from England, and my stepfather is the one who was in the Air Force also, and he got stationed in England, and that's when he met my mother, and that's how we got here in the United States.
So you were in England, and you came to the United States. How did you meet your husband?
I actually met my husband. My father was stationed in Alaska, and it was my husband's first duty station, and that's where we met.
Okay, and from Alaska, what was his next assignment?
My husband got stationed in Korea for 1 year.
Oh, so you couldn't go there,
That's
right?
correct.
Yeah, remote tour.
Right.
So did you stay in Alaska?
Actually, I went to Florida and stayed with my parents.
Okay. Yeah, so once again, the family
Exactly.
supporting the military member and the whole family.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then, I guess when is the first time you were, say, in another country with him? Did you serve?
Yes, no, after Korea, that's when he got orders to Germany. So we
Okay.
went over to Germany.
For how long?
3 years.
Ah, okay.
Okay, so you have 3 little ones.
Correct.
Where during this assignment process were they born?
My oldest son, he was born in Alaska, Fairbanks, Alaska. My daughter, she was born in, both my daughters were actually born in Florida. One was born in Florida while my husband was in Korea. And then my second daughter was born in Florida when we had orders here in Florida.
So you had a baby while your husband was on a remote tour to Korea.
That is correct.
Man.
So he was glad to get home, wasn't he? Okay, let me ask you this. You've been in different places with and without your husband, but basically, what was your relationship with other wives? I mean, we talk about wives organizations, spouses organizations. Let's say in Germany, did you get together with any of the other military wives, and what are some of the things that you do?
Yes, I did. My husband's friends that he actually worked with, we got together and hung out, and that's how I actually ended up meeting the wives, and that's when we started hanging out, becoming good friends and stuff.
Okay, so you had that mutual support.
Correct.
Okay.
What were some of the challenges of living in Alaska?
It was cold.
Besides
Very
being cold,
cold.
how about that daylight thing?
Yes, that's very hard to adjust to also. Very, very hard.
Did the baby have troubles with that?
No, not at all.
That's because mommy took care of the baby.
Yeah, tried to.
Now, we talk about the militarization, if you want to say it, of the home, bringing certain things from your husband's career, the things that he develops and learns from his military lifestyle to the home. Can you think of anything in your home, discipline or anything that your husband brings to the table and kind of shapes the way your house is run?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we enforce it in our kids. My kids are very, very respectful. And I mean, we just taught them that everything's yes, sir, yes, ma'am. And just being organized and keeping things where it's supposed to be and stuff like that.
And they have their own chores? All of them have chores?
Of course, definitely.
Okay, very good.
I'd have to say there's some advantages of being a military spouse and some disadvantages, pros and cons. What comes to mind as a pro and what comes to mind as a con?
As a pro, I would have to say that we have a steady income. That we do have. And the cons are deployments. They're very hard, very hard.
Well, especially that one where your husband was in Korea and you were having a baby all by yourself.
Correct.
Well, thank you for doing that for us.
Thank you.
Now, there's one other thing that we have here. It's called an alibi. And in our alibis, we give you an opportunity to say anything you want to your friends, to your husband, to your family, to the audience that we may have not
giving you the opportunity to say. So just look at the center camera here and give us your alibi.
I would just like to thank my husband for serving his country, and just thank you for just supporting me and his children and just being there for us and doing what he does.
You know, when you said that, and I see the emotion, I've done it before. I've been doing speeches for 38 years that I was in the military. And then when I look in that camera and I start talking to Ruthie, personally, I'm supposed to be the brave guy, don't cry. Tears sometimes roll down when I say, Ruthie, you know, as my spouse, thank you so much for being there and supporting me. So the tears you have here, they're tears of love for you. But for me, they're tears of I'm glad that there's somebody else here who believes in her husband and who believes in America and this country. So thank you so much for coming on this show. But you got to wipe the tears because you got one more duty to do. You got to say forward march with us, okay?
Okay.
So on this show, we look at the camera and together we say 1, 2, 3, forward march. So we say forward, pause, and then we say march.
Okay.
So you ready for it now?
Sure.
Okay, look at the camera.
Okay, forward march on 3. You ready?
And then we go. And then, okay, right. Go ahead.
1, 2, 3.
Forward march.
We'll be right back after these messages. Stay tuned.
The challenges facing the country never stop. So neither does the U.S. Army. We train, adapt, and get smarter. Every soldier, every unit, every day. Not to keep up with change, but to drive it. Nobody knows what problems tomorrow will bring, but we do know who will solve them.
We're back. I'm Al Gilley.
And I'm David G. Landfair. We've been talking about military wives, heroes on the home front. And I'll tell you, that message by Charlene Dukes to her husband was really something.
It was. And it was just an amplification of the type of messages that goes out every day from our military wives to their spouses. And now it's time of the show where we do our On This Day in History. And we have a special guest today. We have a special news correspondent, and you all know her well. She's done a lot of news articles on this show. She's a freelance writer. She's a former military reporter for the Pensacola News Journal. And currently, she is a media specialist, the media specialist at Pensacola State College. And you know her by the name of Marquita Davis. I know her by the name of Marquita. So welcome to the show, Marquita.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. You know, I'm a fan of the show.
We know. We read the articles, and he enshrined his. Okay, go ahead.
Well, welcome, fellow military brat.
Thank you.
And military spouse. What do you have for us today on this day in history?
Well, on this day in history, in what was one of the most famous rescues of the Vietnam War, the U.S. Coast Guard Cutter Point Banks came to the aid of 9 members of the Army of the Republic of Vietnam, or the ARVN. What happened was, as a part of Division 11, Squadron 1, with 8 other Coast Guard cutters, the Point Banks arrived at their new duty station at Antoy on August 1st of the same year and began patrolling the waters in the Gulf of Thailand near the Sao Mau Peninsula. On the night of January 21st, 1969, while on patrol south of Cam Ranh Bay, the Point Banks intercepted a radio transmission from the shore requesting assistance in evacuating several ARV troops that were completely surrounded by Viet Cong units. After receiving permission from field headquarters to attempt a rescue, she launched her small motorized boat with 2 crewmen and came to the aid of 9 stranded ARV troops with the help of 2 Navy Swift boats and an Air Force AC-47 gunship. The Point Banks stood by and assisted by lobbing constant mortar fire along the shoreline to set up a cover so that the troops could be retrieved. In the face of heavy automatic weapons fire, all 9 men were evacuated in 2 trips without a single casualty. For their actions, the Coast Guard crewman, Gunner's Mate Second Class Willis J. Goff, and Engineman Second Class Larry D. Villarreal, were each awarded the Silver Star for their heroism under fire. The citation stated, "The 9 men would have met almost certain death or capture without the assistance of the 2 Coast Guardsmen." What a great story.
I agree. And it's just another example of our military's commitment, our guarantee to our allies that we're going to do whatever we can to protect them in these kinds of situations.
Most definitely.
And so I want to thank you for another great On This Day in History, and hopefully we'll be looking forward to have you on the show again.
Definitely.
Thank you, Bucky.
Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Trident Home Loans, proud to serve our military families. Whether active duty or retired, Trident Home Loans makes buying or refinancing a home as easy as pie. We have the best mortgage rates in the military market. With our instant pre-approval, we are friendly, fast, and hassle-free. Licensed in more than 20 states, we are there to serve all your home buying needs, anytime, any place. Come in to see us at 913 Gulf Breeze Parkway, Gulf Breeze, Florida, where buying a home is easy as pie. Call Trident Home Loans today, 877-874-3368. That's 877-TRIDENT. Visit us online, www.tridenthomeloans.com. Trident Home Loans, where buying a home is easy as pie.
Welcome back. I'm Al Gilley.
And I'm David G. Landfair.
And now it's time for that segment of the show when we have our deployment shout out. And that's when we recognize the significant contributions of our servicemen and women who are stationed overseas. David, who do we have from the helmet today?
Okay, right off the top, we have a deployment shout out to U.S. Navy Lieutenant Patrick Harris. His unit is assigned to Naval Mobile Construction Battalion 1 in Tees, Senegal. Lieutenant Harris operates a medium tactical vehicle replacement unit, among other equipment, where they are clearing sites for the Flintlock 16 exercise for readiness training. The Mobile Construction Battalion is part of the U.S. 6th Fleet, headquartered in Naples, Italy, where they conduct the full spectrum of joint and naval operations, often in concert with allied joint and interagency partners, in order to advance U.S. national security interests and security and stability in Europe and Africa.
A big hooah to you, Lieutenant Harris, and to your unit. And from a forward march here, we'd like to say thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you for representing our country over there in Senegal. Thank you. Job well done.
Now we'll take a break, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
get to you, they'd have to get past us. America's Navy.
We're back. I'm Al Gilley.
And I'm David G. Landfair.
This is the portion of the show which I really enjoy because this gives us an opportunity for you to meet our sponsors. From time to time, we bring one of our sponsors on the show and give you a chance to listen to them talk about their business, talk about themselves, so you'll know who you're dealing with when you're dealing with the sponsors of Forward March. And so, David, who do we have with us today? Which one of our sponsors do we have today?
Today we have Fresh Coat Pensacola and one of the owners of Fresh Coat, Merv Griffin. And yes, that is his name.
And he's a Marine.
And he's a famous Marine because his name is Merv Griffin.
Okay, well, let's meet Merv Griffin. Merv, welcome to our show.
Thanks, sir.
Welcome to the show.
Appreciate it. Pleasure to be here.
I'm going to give David the pleasure of asking you the first question.
Okay.
Oh, good. I was hoping to ask this question. Could you tell us a little bit about choosing the Fresh Coat franchise?
Yeah, sure. So my business partner and I, we did a combat tour back in '05, and in the shop, amongst conversation, we wanted to go ahead and do a business. We talked about doing a business. Well, it didn't come to light quite as quickly as we wanted. We split ways in the military, met up back here in Pensacola several years later, and we revisited that thought of being business owners. So we talked about why would we open or start a business from the ground up when maybe a franchise is the better way to go. So we looked into franchises, and because of the business model and the systems that franchises have in place, it's very similar to the military, because everything we do in our jobs as a military personnel, you have a reference or something to go to tell you how to do your job. So we figured that would be the best way to go rather than starting from the ground up. So that's how we got into Fresh Coat, or that's how we chose to go with a franchise.
So you went with, go ahead.
I was a follow-up question. When we were talking earlier, there's some sort of website you can go to that'll help vets pick a franchise?
Vetfriend.org, I believe it's called, and they are part of the IFA, International Franchise of America, or something. I don't know. I'm not familiar. It was 3 years ago that we were doing that.
We're going to
research.
put it up on the screen anyway.
Okay,
so,
great.
But you know about it. That's what you went to. Is that
Yes,
correct?
sir. We wanted something that was veteran-friendly. Franchises that have been vetted and have been said, hey, you're very veteran-friendly, give discounts for the veterans, support the veteran community, and that's where we wanted to go. And we didn't want to be a part of a franchise who wasn't veteran-friendly. So.
Well, you found one that's veteran-friendly.
Yes, sir.
And you know what I've noticed about a lot of organizations, any of them that deals with veterans, especially ones that are run by veterans like yourself, is that they take a lot of the principles, a lot of the core values that they had in the Marines or the Navy or the Army, and bring it to their business. What did you bring to Fresh Coat that's making your organization successful?
It's a good question. I get that asked a lot, and the biggest thing that we brought with us from the military, I got to say, is probably discipline. As a business owner, you don't have somebody all the time over top of you saying, hey, you need to get up, you need to be here at this time, or you need to get this done by this deadline. And it takes that discipline to get it done when you're supposed to without somebody having to tell you when and how to do it. So I think that's the biggest thing that's made us successful as a franchise.
And I'm sure you have integrity and honor
yes,
and
sir.
loyalty and
Yes,
all
sir.
those other things.
All those other principles, the integrity side of it,
I know.
Customer service, that's where that comes into play. Our integrity plays a lot in our customer service, and our customer service is number one. Our customers are number one. So that's where we bring in the integrity and our core values that the Marine Corps instills into us.
Our loyal followers spread from Pascagoula to Tallahassee. Where do you paint homes in all of those areas, or is it?
Not residential. We kind of stick here close to home, between Navarre and Orange Beach, Alabama. We are licensed in Alabama and Baldwin County as well. However, residential, we've been all the way from Jacksonville to San Marcos, San Antonio, Texas. So if we're, commercial side, we'll pretty much travel anywhere if the company's willing to pay for our travel. So the reputation we have, there are many companies that have paid for that travel and wanted that quality, and so we will travel for the commercial.
That's good news. How do they get a hold of you?
Well, they can reach us at our website at freshcoatpensacola.com. They can call us at 850-418-6011.
Do that number again a little slower.
Sure, 850 418 6011. And I will add, that's 24 hours a day. They'll get a hold of somebody and schedule an appointment.
6011.
Will they get a hold of a real person, or get rid of
As a real person? They can also go on our website any time of day and actually book an appointment with us.
There's two things that we always end with our guests. And even though you're a sponsor, we don't let you get off without doing these two things. One, we give you an alibi. And you being in the military, you know that when you have unspent rounds, you get a chance to fire them off so you can get an accurate count of the targets you hit. So here, we've asked the questions. And you've had a few open-ended questions, but now, this is your alibi. Time for you to face that camera and tell the audience, the general audience that we go out to, anything you want to say to them. This is your time to leave them with a message from Merv Griffin from Fresh Coat.
Well, I got to tell you, all the years I spent in the military, I always got, hey, thank you for your service, thank you for your service. And I feel like I'm the one now saying that. Thank you for your service to all the men and women overseas right now, sacrificing, you and your family. And I'm just humbled here today to say that we still want to give back to our communities. We're here for our communities, and we feel humbled to give back as well. So thank you for all the veterans out there still sacrificing for our freedoms, and I appreciate it.
Yes, there's one more thing that we do. We always give a hearty forward march at the end, and we just look at the camera, and we do the preparatory command, little hesitation, command of execution. On three, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Forward march!
We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Well, David, that just about wraps up our show again. Our first show of the third season. That wraps it up. And you know,
we started with a good one.
An excellent one.
Yes.
I mean, it couldn't have been a better one, I think. And I enjoyed talking to our military wives and getting it from three generations, three different views. But as you notice, there was a thread throughout all those generations of some of the sacrifices and some of the things that military wives have to go through not because they're Americans, not because they were born in the South or the North, but because they are married to a man or woman who are serving their country. And that's dedication. That's why we say they're part of our military family. And the thing that they've gained, the fact that they can now relate, they can speak different languages, all of the things that came out of this show comes home to let you know that if you're out there and you're trying to consider whether to marry a military man, and you may have heard say, nah, don't marry military. I tell you, have you seen from this show? Sure, there are challenges, but the upside is so great. Just dive in. If you love them, marry them. I'm going to be a marriage counselor now. Okay.
And a huge forward march thank you, heartfelt thank you to all the wives and all the spouses out there that, you know, you just make the team complete. And you're an inspiration. And
Definitely.
We can't thank you enough for all that you've done.
Now you thank Marie, and I think, you know, Ruthie, but we have to. This is a military wives show, so we can't go off without thanking our wives. So you go first.
Thank you, Marie, for everything. I can't say enough.
Thank you, Ruthie, and I've said it often. And you hear me say it throughout the years, and you know I mean it from my heart. Thank you for being there and always being there.
Be sure to tune in next week. We have a really interesting show. This one's called Military Medical School, Doctors in Uniform, and you're going to find out how you can become a doctor in the military and what they do. I think it's going to be really interesting. And I think we have just one more thing to do.
And I wonder if I forgot to do it over our break, but let's try it together anyway.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Forward, march.
We'll see you next week.
I'll be here.
Thanks for tuning in. I'll be here too.
Will you be here?